New year, new you. Join us as we catch up with Leland Holgate, one of my most popular guests. He's the fellow that was a quadriplegic once and a paraplegic once and healed himself both times with breath work. We catch up with him as he's snowboarding in Utah, and we're bringing you the best tools that we have come across for upgrading your life quickly and easily. Got a nice full house here today with Leland Holgate joining us from Leland. Where are you snowboarding today?
Oh, well, we just finished actually. We were up in Bryan Head, so Utah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So new year, new you. So many exciting developments with breath work and with accessing your subconscious mind, which we're just finding is more and more and more powerful than we ever thought possible. For those of us that were at the Dr. Joe 10-day, yeah, I see Nashville, Tennessee there. Who else? Go ahead and type in where you're calling in from. We love to know where you're from. And if you're a Dr. Joe person, just put a big thumbs up or a yes. A lot of Dr. Joe people here at the 10-day. One of the most epic things that because we've already witnessed people who are able to regrow their thyroid. 2 people I know have been able to do that. There was a woman there who had surgically, due to a cancer diagnosis, had her her rectum removed, and found out rather quickly that life was very different without a rectum because it's almost like being incontinent all the time. She made the decision to grow her rectum back. So she grew 11 healthy centimeters, and this is medically documented, and I'm super excited to be diving into that in future shows. But I mean, goodness, if this is possible, what else is possible? We can upgrade our quality of life. We can upgrade our physical well-being, all with things that are totally available to us. So I'm going to throw in the chat box. Let's see. This is the interview I did with Leland. If you guys want to know more about Leland's background, we took a deep dive into how he was a quadriplegic once and a paraplegic once and healed himself both times with breath work. Leland, tell us what this year has been like. What are some of the amazing changes that you've seen in other people through breath work and the other ties that you've got your fingers in?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So to start off, the interesting thing was the past 14 months were probably one of the most challenging moments of my life. There were many times, I think we talked about this in my session with you, and I wish I was just back at combat. It was like that level of toughness. But as we know, true growth does not happen in the very calm and coherent moments of life. That's not where we find all the magic, right? That's not where I'm going to find or distill out the things that I need for this next level. So what I recognized is that the breath itself allows me to shift state, allows me to create these beautiful states inside of the body. And also, what it allowed me to recognize is, where am I putting myself? Where am I allowing my energy to go? Where am I allowing energy links to happen? You might want to click mute all for everyone.
Okay.
Just, yeah, because there's a couple of folks that forgot. There we go. So yeah, it was interesting because what it allowed me to do was recognize my responsibility and my power. So many times we give the power away by saying that did this to me or that made me feel this way, when absolutely everything comes from us, no matter what finger you want to point at whatever thing, person, or circumstance. It always comes back to us. So I really dug in over the past, especially 5 months, and really noticed some epic shifts for myself and cleansing that space, allowing myself to use your technique, my breathwork technique, all these other things to settle the body, settle the mind, and then recognize, where was I allowing this energy to leak? Where was I allowing myself to take my mentality, put my mental power, allow all that energy to be taken up? So it's been an amazing journey for myself. And of course, now that I have really dived into the work, now I'm seeing so many of these amazing testimonials coming from some of you that I see in here, actually, that I've got some amazing messages from. For one, we now have 18 different cancer patients who had messaged me. The last one was a stage 4. They were the father of one of our awakened participants, and they did the medicine wheels. They had their own breath practice. They followed what they needed to on the Western medicine side of things, but of course he had his breath practice going on. So get a message just a few months, I think it was like 2 months ago, that he went back in, all the scans were negative, not a sign of cancer in his body. Just in practicing the mindset, breath work, control, all these other things that we continue to talk about. And now one of my other favorite stories, if he's in here, great. If not, you'll see this recording later. Eugene in Ireland, and he's one of our MS warriors. And he hasn't been able to feel things below his belly button for the past 10 years. And now, since he has started the breath regimen and allowed himself to really, really dive into the entirety of this work, he's starting to get sensations. He hit me up one of the messages, one of those where you don't feel anything. And then all of a sudden, you start to feel things. And it was one of those messages he gave me where he was like, my butt is hurting. Oh, my butt is hurting. So at first, of course, you're like, oh, that hurts. And you're like, oh, hold on a minute, that hurts. I can feel that. So there's so many more testimonials I'm actually going to be sharing in some of our groups. So I don't want to get too caught up in that. But my goodness, the stories that just keep coming back from not just practicing breath work, because that's the one thing I try to get people to realize. Breath work is there to help you shift state. Then, now what? What are we going to do with that subconscious program that runs absolutely everything, just like you and I both talked about?
Hey guys, studies are showing that 68% of people that watch podcasts regularly don't click the subscribe button. Do me a huge favor. If you like this content, click subscribe so other people know where to go for the cool stuff. Thank you.
So for those of you that have joined us a little bit late, I know we have a lot of people pouring in from all over the place. If you've just joined us, please type in the chat box where you're from. We love seeing where you're from. We do have people on from all over the world, but Leland was talking about how this year was immensely challenging and how, like the Stoics say, the obstacle is the way that gives us the opportunity for growth, and how he dug in and got to new levels of growth through that. Can you encapsulate for us, Leland? Because I like myself, I find that the more and more I do this work, the more refined describing it is. What are the big wins that people get with breath work? You change your state. That's one thing that's very powerful about it. What else is happening in breath work that allows somebody to overcome a major challenge, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual?
Yeah. I can distill it down to one superpower, which is what the breath and everything that we are doing helps you to really tune into. And that is awareness. Awareness creates choice points. The moment that I sink into the work, the moment that I allow myself to shift the state, that I can stop blaming that thing or that person. I can stop giving away all of my power and recognize, oh my goodness, I have all of these different choices that I can make from this point forward. So if I distill it down to one word, awareness, the ability to look at where you are now without judgment, without the course of change, but just to sit in that moment. If it's uncomfortable, sit in that that discomfort. Sit inside of that space, whatever emotions are coming up, be aware of what you're feeling. And now you have choice. You can create true change in your life.
I love it. I love it. And since you and I took a deep dive into the subconscious mind together, would you share with people what that was like? Because I knew you were having like a super challenging year, and I know how powerful the subconscious mind is. Obviously, you're a Dr. Joe guy to the nth degree. I love working with people that are already very spiritually aware and know how powerful their subconscious mind is, because when they drop into the subconscious with somebody giving them a little mirror and a little, flashlight, because it's subconscious. I mean, how do you deal with your own subconscious? Yes, you can do a tremendous amount with breath. You can also do a lot with language, because we find when we say things that limit ourselves, we're telling the subconscious mind, we can't do something. But would you just share what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, no, it was epic. And the one thing that I always tell people is, me being as somebody who's studying to be a psychologist right now and a coach, as I have been, psychologists need psychologists, coaches need coaches. So it was epic to go through your process, because knowing all the tools and putting all the tools into work, and then allowing myself to be inside of your magic space, and allowing you to help dive into my subconscious with the neuro-linguistic programming and the beautiful way which you move through your work. It was absolutely amazing, because it's the difference between knowing and do it, or being, right? Like, you can know all of these things, but being that or doing that, it's very different, especially when you're in tough states. So I love that you answered the call, you saw what was going on. And hey, even me, even Dr. Tara, even Dr. Joe, need a little help sometimes. Need a hand every now and then.
100%. Coaches do need coaches. When I get stuck on something, I absolutely reach out for help, because you can't see your own blind spots.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's very difficult at times, and this is the human experience, to get that 20-foot view of what's happening right now when you're really in the storm, right? If you're the one of the best analogies ever is, if you're on a sailboat and you're in the middle of that tempest, you're in the middle of that storm, it is impossible to see the directions that are going to head you the quickest route out of that. So you need a lighthouse on the shore to help guide you out of that storm. So yeah, it was an amazing process. And I continue to listen to my recording that you get from Dr. Tara whenever you go through that. I love it. I even listen to it during the day, even if it's not sleepy time. I'm just popping it in, headphones on, and letting the subconscious get a little program.
So I'm going to take a few minutes here and just go through some slides. So a lot of these people are new to me, but these are people that have been through my process and had some form of stuckness, whether it was inability to sleep at night. This gal hadn't slept well for 7 years. She only slept 3 to 4 hours a night. She went through regular sleep therapy, but it didn't do anything for her. She says, I don't know how you did this. You didn't even mention sleep. I didn't have to. I just had to remove the emotions that were preventing her from sleeping in the first place. People who have had daily panic attacks have been through multiple years of therapy, felt deep trauma to their whole being, and now their soul just feels like it should. This gal had been attacked by a Rottweiler. She went through 6 jaw surgeries, was living in pain and fear of losing more teeth. She had developed a choking disorder, so that every time she ate, she was at risk of going to the hospital. Her husband called me and said, can you help? They had 3 young children. This was a huge drain on the family. And in the first session, she knew this was the answer. Many people, especially people that are advanced meditators, people who are spiritually minded, who know how powerful their subconscious mind is, like Leland, just drop right in, and they're able to see, oh, this is the blind spot that I didn't see before, and just can immediately flip it around. This fellow was all excited when he found out I was an acupuncturist, because he broke his spine 40 years ago in a motorcycle accident. And I said, look, you've done acupuncture, you've done chiropractic. Why don't we just go to Command Central here and find out what's stuck in your subconscious mind? Because if you break your femur, which is the thickest bone in your body, that should be healed better than ever in just 8 weeks. He said, great, sign me up. And in 2 sessions, he didn't have the pain anymore. I said, are you surprised by that? He said, no, I know how powerful my subconscious mind is. So this and many of the other episodes of people that I've worked with are on my YouTube channel and my podcast, Next Level Healing. I've interviewed Leland a number of times. Everybody loves Leland. And people that are stuck with business problems find that they're just able to get more done with less effort. There's Leland right there. He says this is the piece you're looking for. So if again, we've got those things in our subconscious mind that are stressing us out. They're trying to solve a problem, but they don't have the full view. So by having a bird's eye view of what the problem is, removing the blinders. I hear that a lot from people that I work with. This is Ray Catania. He is an author of The Atheist in the Afterlife. He's a successful therapist. And you can listen to his story also on my YouTube and Instagram channel. I did this for my mother when she smashed her kneecap into 13 pieces. As an elderly person, that can be a life-ending injury because when they are immobilized while the bone is healing, they have muscle atrophy, and that can literally be the end of life for them. So I made her one audio to speed heal the kneecap, and I made her another one to convince the muscles they were working out, even though they were immobilized. And there's really good science, as Leland knows, behind all of this. We hear all these kinds of things from Dr. Joe. And more we're starting to understand the science behind it. People addicted to sugar, in one session, they're not having it anymore. So anyway, these are all on the Instagram channel, on my YouTube channel. And if anybody wants to check those out, as the whole key is understanding that the conscious mind is only 5 to 10% of our brain. When Leland is working on pulling the subconscious out into the conscious mind through his breath work, that's what he's doing. Your subconscious mind is 90 to 95% of your mind. And while your conscious mind is only processing 40 bits of information per second, your subconscious mind is processing 40 million bits of information per second. So that's why people are able to heal faster than they thought possible. When they get out of the higher brainwave states and into these relaxed brainwave states where we have much better access to that subconscious mind. People say, if this is possible, why doesn't my doctor know about this? David Perlmutter is one of my favorite physicians on the earth. He says it takes about 18 years for good information to get into mainstream medicine. William Davis got tired of giving everybody drugs and surgery for heart conditions. He says there's no grape and grape nuts. There's no health. He says there's no ham and hamburger. There's no grape and grape nuts, and there's no health and healthcare. So we are hopefully seeing our medical system get a little bit more on target with helping people out in a faster way. And as Leland just pointed out, people that are going through standard medical care are also getting accelerated improvement with this kind of work. Did I lose Leland? Oh, I hope not. Leland, are you there? Does anybody
here? For some reason, it's cutting in and out.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I love these live opportunities for people to just jump in and ask questions. I see Rebecca Boca de Torres, Panama. I guess you know Leland. Leland, do you know Rebecca?
I do know her, but we haven't gotten to meet up there just yet. So when I get back down there, of course, that'll be our chance to do some breath stuff together and hang out.
We've got Beta, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from London. We've got Ohio. Curtis is calling in from North Carolina. Leland is cutting out on audio. David said, I would second everything Leland said about Dr. Tara. Amazing. Oh, thank you so much. So does anybody have any questions? Because one of the juicy things about having both Leland and I on the line right now is you can just ask questions. If you're stuck on something, I know a lot of the subconscious mind is confusing, and it's not obvious to the average person, how this amazing power source can be tapped into. It can be, let's see, Leland is requesting allow. There we go.
Just for whenever I want to share slides. For right now, yeah, like Dr. Tara is saying, this is a great time to ask any questions that you might have burning in your brain right now.
Perfect. We've got Calgary calling in with Sandra. Who's got a question? What I'd love to know what your goal is for next year and what you think the biggest blockage is for that we could help you with getting some clarity on that. Brooke says, can every illness problem be helped with working with the subconscious? Great question. Go for it, Leland.
That is a vehement yes. An absolute yes, 100% yes. Absolutely every illness or problem stems from the subconscious program. The subconscious program, just like Dr. Tara mentioned, runs 95%, if not more, of everything that happens. So when you think about it, that means it runs every subsystem inside of your body that creates wellness or illness. So yeah, take it away from there, Dr. Tara.
And I would like to stress, this is not medical advice here on this program. I've run a medical practice for years, but when you have an individual thing, you need to seek your individual help for that. That said, I would agree with Dr. Joe also that a diseased body comes from an incoherent environment. And sometimes the causes for that can be very unseen. Of course, if we're around some chemical poisoning or something like that, that's a whole different milieu of issue. But I would say, many more illnesses and diseases than we expect. There's just a huge subconscious component because, again, the conscious mind is. Joe started out the 10-day retreat, and it was just perfect. He says the chances of you perceiving reality correctly are 0. When you look at quantum physics and understanding that the atoms in your body are 99.999% empty space, and that what's left is just vibrating frequency, then you can start to understand why frequency has such a massive impact on physicality. There was that wonderful study with the guy that looked at eggs, and one end of the egg has a positive charge and the other end has a negative charge. And he extrapolated that out and started looking at the energetics of humans. He discovered that women with ovarian cancer all shared a certain energetic signature. And what was curious to him at the time is there was a group of women that had the signature, but they didn't have ovarian cancer. But every single one of those women developed ovarian cancer. So what that led him to understand is that it's not physicality that causes the electrical signature. It's the electrical signature that causes the physicality. So if we want to change, then we need to change our state, as breath work can do, as going into the subconscious can do, as just honestly meditation and being aware of your thoughts can do, although that can take a lot longer. It definitely speeds things up if you have somebody helping you that knows how to navigate the subconscious mind. But when you change that energetic signature in the field, then that can trickle down to the physical form. So, for example, the woman that regrew her rectum, which is medically an impossible thing to do, she didn't sit there and go, "Oh, I'm out of luck. I took that part of my body out and I'm stuck." She went into her mind in a very, very powerful, coherent way and saw herself and lived the experience of having a healthy rectum before that actually came into being. And that takes an enormous amount of focus, an enormous amount of coherence, an enormous amount of will and dedication. But she did it. And what's cool about these things is that once one person has done it, like Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile, other people start doing it because they go, "Oh, well, if that person did it, I can do it." So that's a big monster question you ask, Brooke. And I would say there's layers of understanding to the answer. And I hope if you could just type in the chat and let us know if that was a helpful answer. And then I don't mind turning people's cameras on if you want to raise your hand and come on and ask the question in person as well. Brooke said, yes, that was helpful. Kevin Doyle has a question and he's unmuted. So, oops, are you muted? Yeah. Hey, Kevin, what's your question?
Well, first of all, I just want to say hi. Shout out to Leland. If anyone hasn't worked with Leland, he's amazing. I did his Awaken the Warrior 12-week program and just saw a tremendous shift and benefit from it. But not only that, he's someone that just is there to support and help. Like have an upper respiratory infection this week, and I just messaged him today, and he was just giving me some tips for that. My question, Dr. Tara Perry, I'm new to you. Just kind of thinking about some of the things that I'm still trying to shift in my body. So just from like a pain perspective, I grew up wrestling, had a lot of like injuries, did a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu in my 30s. I'm 43 now, and I'm trying to just unwind a lot of like injury and pain and like fascial tightness, restriction, just open the body up more to be more free. And I feel like the breath work has definitely helped me tremendously with that. And then also I've got into the yoga as well through the 12-week program with Leland, and just in kind of continuing those practices. From your perspective in the work that you do, how does that translate to somebody who's trying to open up the body more, create more freedom in the body, and resolve, I guess, past like chronic pain issues?
Brilliant question. One thing that they looked at 60 different illnesses when they were studying all of Dr. Joe's stuff. And the number one thing that consistently improves is pain. And so when you're in heart and brain coherence, the longer you spend in heart and brain coherence, connecting more fully and authentically to source, the better your body has a chance to heal. So on my slide presentation, and I didn't put that particular slide up, but I have an on-off switch. And if you're in some form of fight or flight, fight, flee, freeze, fawn is the fourth one. So my people pleasers, that's actually a trauma response. So if the alarm's off in your house all the time, how useful is that? You get fatigued, you get exhausted, you go numb. It's not telling you any new information. It's just stressing you out all the time. So going into the subconscious and finding out what is the emotion that you're feeling. Typically people come to me with anxiousness, fear, could be anger, could be numbness. It doesn't really matter, but it's a feeling that just you keep running up against. It's trying to solve a problem for you, but it can't. It's like an iPhone 16 operating on iPhone 4 technology. So by going into the subconscious mind, finding out the root, the origin, the cause of what that emotion is, how did it get anchored in? And I got to tell you, the military people I work with, they typically go back somewhere between the ages of 2 and 10. They don't usually go back to the military. It's something that got anchored in there. It's usually some form of overwhelm. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Other people get relief. I don't deserve it. Whatever it is, we all have very similar stories, but they vary a little bit from person to person. And the subconscious isn't going to change until you talk to it. And when you get that communication and can take away the old programs that are stressing you out, maybe in a way that you're not even aware of, then your body is easier to go into heart and brain coherence. What Leland and I do works like this together because, he's doing the breath work, which is a magnificent way to upgrade your biochemistry, your brain orientation, and then going into the subconscious, removing those old patterns that whatever it is, I'm not good enough. The world's overwhelming. It's different stories, but there's similarities. And then where is that stuck in your body? What does it want? What does it need? And then it'll get the upgrade once it can see why it got stuck there, and then go, oh, I'm not an iPhone 4, I'm an iPhone 16. That may have served me when I was a 6-year-old, but as a grown adult who's accomplished all this stuff, I deserve to be functioning and operating from different software. And then it'll make that change, because without on its own, your brain wants to revert back to what's familiar. It thinks that what's familiar is safe. You've probably heard that before. The brain prefers a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven. But once it can see, again, that it's not an iPhone 4, it's not the 4-year-old, it's not the 6-year-old, it's not the 8-year-old, whatever the story is, we've all got those stories. Every single one of us has got those stories. I don't know that many fully realized people. I would not pretend for a second to be one myself. But I'm a heck of a lot better than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't even recognize the person from 20 years ago. Thank God. So did that help answer the question? Once you remove the old programming, the old stresses, you have a much better access to increased heart and brain coherence, and your body has a better chance to heal and get out of pain.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
So for somebody who's done a lot of the Dr. Joe work and a lot of the brain and heart coherence, and maybe not the work that you do, but that have kind of done some self-exploration there, but have trouble kind of figuring out what is that feeling, or what is that thing that happened when I was younger, or what am I holding on to? Is that really what your work's about, is digging into that space?
Yeah, because your conscious brain doesn't have the answer. It's only 5 to 10% of your brain. It's only capable of managing about 40 bits of information per second. When you go into 40 million bits of information per second, there's a whole reservoir. Let me see. Let me just do another little share here with you. So, like the guy that broke his spine, he's an advanced Dr. Joe guy. He had already done the work, all that, and it just made it so much easier to work with him. He did still have the spine pain, but it was so much easier for him to dump it because, like Leland, working with Leland was a joy. This gal had trauma as a baby. She had been through 4 years of intensive interpersonal work at the University of Santa Monica. The doctors couldn't help her when she was a baby. The parents couldn't help her. So she developed all this learned helplessness as a result of the pain. And in just 3 sessions, she was able to get deeper, faster results, again, by accessing that huge reservoir of the subconscious mind. This is a businessman. Let's see. This gal was an advanced Dr. Joe person. This is a sales thing. So she didn't feel comfortable selling art. She made a lot of money as an attorney, but when she switched to being a gallerist, she, got stuck, and she's like, I just don't feel comfortable. I procrastinate. For whatever reason, I can't ask money for art. And the answer was completely unlike anything she expected. She was an advanced Dr. Joe person. She was an advanced meditator, but there was a program that was stuck in her. She went to a past life. And once she was able to see what the problem was, we rewired it. Now she sells paintings for $30,000 and $40,000 and has a great time. So again, a lot of times the answer is just not what you expect. Did that answer the question, or did I bring up more questions?
No, thank you. I appreciate the, going deeper into it.
And for anybody that just wants to explore this, you can go to consulttara.com. There's some questions there that you can get some clarity on the issue that you're struggling with. And you can get on a 30-minute Zoom call. We can talk about your specific thing and see if this is a good fit for you.
Thank you.
Anybody else with questions for Leland or I? We love hearing from you. Hi, David. Nice to see you. Oh, David's got a question.
It's not really a question, but there was one thing that you were pointing out when you were talking about, when Kevin was asking, people were Dr. Joe people, and you were going through it, and you just brought up all the different, backgrounds of people. The thing, I work with Dr. Tara, and have with Leland for over 2 years now, but it is one of the gifts, and I could go on about that, but one of the really biggest gifts is the compassion that you have for everybody else when you realize shit that you were doing that you had no idea was causing came from something that I remembered when I was 7 years old. And when you realize that everybody's walking around with something like that, it just changes you as a human being in so many different ways when you interact with everybody else. So I wanted to just raise that part up for everybody.
I really appreciate that. The reason I started my podcast was to demystify this experience. And David, what you just said, you could see Leland and I were just nodding like this. Because I feel like I get to let people out of prison for a living. And then I also have another slide that, I feel like I'm Glenda the Good Witch. I'm not giving anybody anything they don't already have. All I'm doing is removing the blinders that got stuck along the way. It seems to be just part of this human mystery that we're living. We all go into this massive state of forgetting that we are, as Joda says, and all the other great spiritual teachers of the millennia, we're better than we know. We're more magnificent. We're more endless. We're more unlimited than we can possibly dream of. And the start of it is to start removing those blinders. Leland, chime in there, because I know you were nodding your head really powerfully there.
I could say one thing before you do. It's like, and it's so like, it's not like there's not work to continue to do. There's more layers to it, but it's so quick, the difference that you notice. And other people, like my wife calls me new Dave Johnson now, like even just in the last month and a half that we've been working, together. It's like, oh, this must be the new Dave Johnson, so sorry. Go ahead, Lee.
No. That was an epic addition, because to further your point and Dr. Tara's point, it's amazing. The more that we recognize that there are always going to be pieces that we're blindsided to, there's always going to be pieces in there, just like Dr. Tara said, that we've forgotten, and that happens. There's these things, experiences from childhood, experiences from all these different pieces of your life that really get commingled into the cellular structure of your body. So there's a lot of these times that literally it blindsides you. And the only way to dive in and to really become aware, there's that word again, awareness, is to deal with the subconscious programming that's happening there. So, and just like Dr. Tara, that's one of my favorite pieces, is to constantly remind people, like, I may have taken you through a process. I may have allowed the highlighting of these things, but you did the work. You dove in. It was your subconscious. It was you that did it. You pulled all of these things out yourself, because as we forget, so too do we have the remembering built into us. It is built into our very being, our cellular structure, the energetic structure that we are, as you continue to study all of these different ways. So the forgetting is in there, and it's part of the experience, just like Dr. Tara said. If we don't forget, then how are we going to remember? If we are just the divine, well, then I know everything. There's no experience inside of that. So the forgetting is a very key piece, because it allows you to then again remember that, oh, okay, this is all coming from me. I can continue to point my fingers. I can continue to shift blame or guilt, but it's all stemming from this right here. It's coming from this thing.
Wow, you said so much gold there. That's why Leland's process is called Welcome Home. Because when you're doing the breath work and you feel amazing, or when you're dropping old programs, the new David, is that the real David, or is that, a false David? It's the real you that just has the opportunity to come out and experience life. It's like a rebirth. It's really nice.
Yeah, I love that. That's the beautiful part too. So I love that David said that too, the new David, because you all have the new you already sitting in there. You just have to activate it. And the funniest part is Dr. Tara and I just get to be catalysts. We get to be those lighthouses on the shore, and I continually remind people of that. It's like, no matter how much you want to give Dr. Joe, Bruce Lipton, Dr. Tara, myself the credit, we don't get the credit. We literally are just helping you remember the things that we at some point forgot too. So that's the beautiful part about this work, is just to continually feed into this whole family of amazing souls, and to just flame the embers of everybody's little spark to get that going in themselves. So that's what I love about this work so much.
Yep. I've got another slide in my thing that says, I can't make you think anything you don't want to think, or believe anything you don't want to believe. I'm literally just a tour guide.
There you go.
You have to walk the path. And when I hear the, oh my God, my life's changed, it's like, you did it. And I always say to people, are you right-handed or left-handed? And whatever they answer, I say, put that hand behind your back and give yourself a pat on the back, and then give yourself a big hug, because you did it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's my favorite piece, that, like you mentioned, with the welcome home method. It is literally like coming back to yourself. And we can use the term new and all these other things, but it's literally just coming back to the original you, the authentic and powerful you, in every way, shape, and form.
And it feels like it. As Dr. Joe says, it's the most familiar, unfamiliar feeling. And it does feel like coming back home. It feels like coming back to your authenticity, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So Leland, what do you have as far as programs, or what are your latest offerings that people can dive into for people who are not familiar with your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll drop in my email there for really quickly. I will just give you the little view. And this is why, just like Dr. Tara said, like hand in hand, it really hand, because absolutely everything is right here inside of that reprogramming of the subconscious. And more than anything, it's not even really a reprogramming. It is a remembering, right? It is a coming back home to the way of your own power, that internal system that you have. Can you hear me okay? Am I cutting out?
No, I hear you great. You cut out a little bit, but you're pretty good. Oops, now you cut out a little bit more. Leland is on a snowboarding trip right now, so we're lucky to have him here.
Okay, perfect. I cut out my video just in case that was taking up bandwidth. All right. So, and amazing enough, I can't see the list of people who are in here, but David and Kevin, they were actually in our last Awaken the Warrior Within program So they can speak to a lot of all of this.
And for those of you who are not familiar, I did post in the chat box earlier, and I'll do it again. The interview that I did with Leland, he was a quadriplegic once and a paraplegic once, and healed himself both times using breath work. Now he is being trained in this and teaching it to the military. It's really exciting what you can accomplish by changing your state with your breath.
Inside of the Awaken the Warrior Within program, it is a 12-week course on simply diving in and becoming aware, as we talked about, right? Awareness is what. So it's amazing whenever you move through some of these things, the simple shifts that happen just by noticing the program, right? Not by changing it, not by judging it. How many of us actually take a moment to recognize what's running? That's the first step. If you're not recognizing what's running, then it's going to continue to run until you become aware of it and make shifts and changes. So that's exactly what this program is built around. When you look at neuroscience, it takes roughly about 20 to 23 days to institute a new thought process, way of being, or shift inside of your life, as well as that 20 to 23 days of pruning away old synaptic activity and these neural patterns that get locked in inside of our body. So whenever we look at what we're doing inside of that 12-week program, it literally gives you 4 different cycles of creating that new way of being in the first 20 to 23 days, and then strengthening that way of being for the next 20 to 23 days. And then over and over again, we are just simply going in and creating little awareness, little choice points for yourselves so that you can make that shift and change inside of your own existence, your own life, your own program. And David and Kevin, you can feel free to share your experience in voice or in chat. One of the beautiful parts is we have 3 of these group trainings that happen every year. And actually coming up in February, I'm now opening up one-on-one mentorship side, where this is the full subconscious opening up of the book and allowing ourselves to see what's running inside of your life and what do you want to be running inside of your life. So we'll be opening that up here coming up very soon.
Would you guys like to share your experience if you're not in a noisy place? Love to hear from you.
So I did the 12-week program, I think, back in the spring. And couple of things that I don't think Leland mentioned, if it's still running the same way, this is a very comprehensive program. So look at everything from like diet to all these moments like in between the breath, neurolinguistics, different like CO2 tolerance exercises that you can do throughout the day. So it's not just like I had done a decent amount of breath work before doing this 12-week course. And this is much more than just learning the welcome home method and kind of some of these advanced breath techniques. It's looking at everything that kind of goes into those subconscious programs. And then in addition to that, I don't think Leland mentioned, if it's still running the same way, you also get 6 individual sessions, 30, I think an hour, right? 6 1-hour sessions with Leland to really dive into anything that you have going on within your life or that you're trying to address specifically. So from that perspective, it's not just like a group session. It's very individualized to whatever's going on with you. I found that to be very beneficial in my circumstance. And then just to kind of echo what I said before, I mean, I try to respect boundaries as much as possible, but I will say that, like, from time to time, I'll reach out to Leland. There's never been a time where I've reached out to Leland where he didn't respond. And so just from that perspective, you have somebody who's a coach that, is really has your back and is looking for your best interests, not just during that 12 weeks, but, going forward as well. So that's my experience.
Beautiful. Yeah, that is a nice thing that Leland and I offer, is a little more hands-on one-on-one, because people, Dr. Joe's great, but you're not going to get one-on-one time with Dr. Joe.
Yeah, and I just echo a lot of what Kevin said. I mean, comprehensive is a big word, just with the nutrition and the movement and the breath work. And then even within the breath work, I've been doing Leland's breath work probably for about 18 months before I took the course. And there was just, stuff that I, didn't know about, didn't think about, wasn't, doing it. It's a practice, right? So you always get better you always have phases, and then the ability to go back to that work again and again and have those meditations available. Some of you are on like, 5 a.m. morning breathwork meditations that I do, and I use a lot of the ones from either that program or the medicine cabinet, and I use them. I use all that stuff to this day too. So, and then lastly, what last point Kevin made, just Leland being a real person in there for everything is big adder to the whole deal.
Well, I wish he was here to listen to your beautiful comments. I think we lost him for a second there.
Lost him right as we were going in. So there you go.
We, there's a saying in the skiing community: when there's fresh powder, all friendships are off. So I think we lost Leland to snowboarding this morning. Does anybody have any other questions that I can answer? I love what Leland's doing. I love the amount of heart that Leland brings to it. He really does care. When you've suffered yourself, and certainly being a quadriplegic once and a paraplegic once and an alcoholic and a drug addicted person and all those things that Leland went through, which he so beautifully outlined in the interview that I did with him, which is in the chat string. There he is. Leland, I was just talking about what a big heart you have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had to switch over on a different hotspot there, and heart is warmed to hear everything that Kevin said and yourself. I probably missed it. Blue. Thank you for pointing all that out. I'm here to help because, as you mentioned, Dr. Tara, I've been through the whole thing, and I don't want anybody else to feel that.
Yeah, well, that is a big benefit to, suffering. If you've suffered, then you don't want other people to suffer. And that's that Leland, your caring shows in your work, which is beautiful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for pointing out the other aspects. You can, of course,
Any other questions? Would love to hear questions in the chat box. The only bad question is one that you didn't ask. So cellular dead spots. Yes, I think you're right, Sandra. Any other questions? Challenges for the new year? Questions on how you get from A to B through this transformative work that Leland and I are doing? Let us fill in some gaps. If you do have any questions and want to work with me, there's some questions that you can fill out on consultterra.com. Just to get clarity as to what you're wanting to shift. We can meet on a Zoom call and see if this is good for you. Leland, what were you saying? We didn't hear the last few things that you said.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So basically, I was thanking Kevin for pointing out the full comprehensive side of the Awaken program and the work that I do. Because when you look at it, the breath work is literally like maybe 20% of what I do. It's a great way to shift state. It's a great way to change the frequency levels, the brainwave state. It's a great way to shift the absolute chemical compounds and, the makeup of your body. However, it only gets you so far. You can meditate as often as you want. You can breathe as often as you want. But if you're not getting in there and actually shifting what program runs absolutely everything, including those subsets of chemicals and everything else that happens, you'll continue to spin your wheels. So that's what's beautiful about both of our works, actually. And like you mentioned, they fit together perfectly. They really do, like puzzle pieces, because everything Dr. Tara and I do are to help you shift that subconscious programming, which will shift absolutely everything inside of your life. So for those that are looking to do something like Awaken the Warrior Within, we will have the one-on-one mentorship moving forward.
And it all goes back to Donald Hebb's law that neurons that fire together wire together. So you get a clear thought and a strong emotion, they get stuck together, and that's just running around in our subconscious mind. Once you can get those unstuck, and that's breaking the habit of being yourself. It's getting past going back to the familiar. Once you venture out into becoming a new person, there's absolute science on how to do that. Let's see. Penny's got a question. Can you share your treatment modalities and how you differ from Leland? Okay, great question, Penny. I work completely differently. Leland is training people in breath work and how to increase heart and brain coherence physically that way. I work one-on-one with people to drop them into a relaxed brainwave state, because when you slow the brain waves down, which is so simple, when you're watching television, you're daydreaming, you're naturally slowing those brain waves down. And if if you know how to meditate at all, you're slowing those brain waves down. And in that state, when you're working with somebody, you can get to the root of how those programs got wired into your brain. So I work in a 90-day process. There's 3 2-hour sessions where we drop you into that relaxed state. I give people a practice audio. There's a little trick that you look up with your eyeballs. You take 3 breaths. And when you close the eyes down on the 3rd breath, you notice they're fluttering a little bit. That's just a little easy way to get into rapid eye movement. It's, again, just another little nudge to get that subconscious mind relaxing. And then I couldn't possibly explain my process in an hour, or even probably 100 hours, because there's different ways to communicate with the subconscious mind. And I have a large toolbox, having studied with a lot of the top people on the planet in transformation, to get to the root of why that thing got stuck in, what it needs, and then giving it the pathway from where it is to where it wants to go. So people get a recording to listen to each night. Leland was talking about how he loves listening to his, because it's talking to your subconscious mind. David's got one as well. Taking it from that old painful way of being that you thought was just the way life was, to who you really are, that bigger, better, more expanded part of you. Once the subconscious mind can see, oh, I'm not that hurts, that's painful, that's harming me, it will be willing to make that journey. And so that audio tape that I make for people, that's customized to you listen to each and every night in between sessions. Then we revisit it again, because a whole bunch of things will have shifted and changed. The number of people that I work with the next time who have dumped, 70-80% of the shame, the blame, the anger, the guilt, the whatever the story is, they just feel lighter, and they're able to, that's why the body's able to function better. It's able to heal faster when it's dropped all that old programming. And yes, Penny, you can go to the website. The best thing to do is to set up a call with me, so I can walk you through exactly how that works and how that would work for you in particular. Miklos, I hope I'm saying that right. Why can one have resistance towards healing methods like this or Dr. Joe, or why is it that is so great? If it's not uncomfortable, okay, I hope I'm reading that right. Okay. So again, that goes back to, I hope I'm understanding your question correctly. The brain prefers a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven. And the reason that is that we're tribal in nature. These cells that we inherited, they've come from a long lineage. And there was an experiment, I hate animal experiments like poison, but they took rats and they shocked them and exposed them to the smell of cherry blossoms. And it wasn't a surprise that all you had to do was expose them to the blossom smell and they would experience a shock in their body, even though the shock wasn't there. That's just Pavlovian. We understand that. That was not a surprise. What was a surprise is that the children of those rats, all you had to do is expose them to the cherry blossoms and they experienced a shock. The children, it took 3 generations to take out that neural pattern. So when we look about what our parents have gone through, wars, famines, all poverty, whatever it is, that neural program gets stuck in our tissues, and that can be challenging to unwind. So when you have somebody that can help you go into your subconscious mind, find out what that thing is that's blocking you, it's just often so far beyond the conscious mind's ability to find. Because again, that 40 bits of information per second is just no challenge for that 40 million bits of information that comes up. And I always say when people are working with me, look, it's like you're sitting in a movie theater, you might see things, you might hear things, you might recall things, you might have sensations in your body. There's no wrong answer. I literally don't care if we spend the entire time having a conversation with your left pinky, if that's what your subconscious mind wants to do, because it knows stuff that we don't. So, and as Dr. Joe says, when you're turned it over to the quantum, the answer is going to come to you in a way that you don't expect it. And he says, why is that? Because if you did expect it, it would be part of that little tiny conscious mind of yours, which doesn't typically have the answers, or the answers that it has are just really limited. It's not that you don't have a use for it. I mean, of course we have a use for our conscious mind. It helps us get to work on time. It helps us, get the kids ready for school. There's a use for it, but there's a whole different expanded part of us that has an amazing use as well. Did I answer that for you? Miklos, I hope I'm saying that right. Give me a thumbs up if I got close to answering that for you. So that's the reason healing is uncomfortable, because the subconscious mind thinks that what's familiar is safe, even if what's familiar is horrible. It's like many of you have heard of Stockholm Syndrome. So Stockholm Syndrome is when people were kept by their captors and they developed an affinity for their captors, even though they were being abused. It's just, it's why people that were raised with abusive parents tend to have abusive behavior to their kids, because they just don't know any differently. What's familiar is safe, even if what's familiar is horrible. That is breakable, and it can happen very, very quickly. Leland mentioned neuro-linguistic programming. Tony Robbins, who's pioneered that and made it known to the world, he actually calls it neuro-associative conditioning now, because again, neurons that fire together wire together. It's neuro-associative conditioning. So what we do, it's just a clearer way of thinking about it, because what you're doing is you're unlearning that and you're learning something new. You're firing and wiring a pattern that serves you at a higher level. I hope I did a good job of answering that. Any other questions? We still have Leland. He's struggling with bandwidth there. Here we go. Let's see. Leland, I'll type since my service is spotty at best. For those who you missed anything on my process, 30-day system reprogram as a neuroscientist, yoga teacher, and all the knowledge of psychology. I work with comprehensive NLP, breath, movement, and diet shifts. This is why Dr. Tara's work and my own fit so well beautifully together. Yes, agreed. And we help you hand in hand, finding the power within yourself. The answers have always been yours. It's just that, you can't see your own blind spots. And as Leland said, coaches need coaches, therapists need therapists. I need people that can help me see what I can't see. I've worked with Leland. I've worked with all kinds of therapists, doctors, teachers, and we all need people to help us with our stuff. Any other last minute questions? Love, David, so great seeing you on here. Kevin, it's been great seeing you. Curtis, great seeing you. All these other new faces and familiar faces. So good to see you here. Tanya, lovely seeing you. Vita, Susan, Beth, hi everybody. Anybody last minute questions? If you registered, you will get the recording. I know a lot of you came really late because you had some other commitments, and that's totally fine. You'll get the recording. I'm not sure how soon that'll be going out. My assistant is on holiday, a much deserved holiday. Thank you, Curtis. Yes, nice to see you. Love you. Okay, everyone. Love having you here. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next episode of Next Level Healing and the next webinar that we have. And thank you all so much for joining us. Mwah.
This podcast is intended for the purpose of providing information and education. It does not provide advice and is not meant to be used for any self-diagnosis or the replacement of any kind of licensed professional. The creators and individuals appearing here do not endorse any specific tests, positions, medications, products, or procedures. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.